Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, host of the show. It is Tuesday, September the 26th, and like every Tuesday morning, I'm joined by my two cohorts, Mr. Sean Higgs and Mr. Jesse Schule, both of gamblersWORLD.net. Boys, I hope you had a great weekend. Sean, how are you, my man?
Well, let's be honest. We should kneel down to you there, Ross.
We're not worthy.
Come on, man. I have like a. It doesn't. I could go 10-1. I'm not as good as you. It doesn't make a difference what I do. Have you lost this year? I mean, like Jesse goes undefeated. He's not the best guy in the site.
In the NFL, Sean. So college football has been the one that's been really rolling for me. 11-0 the last two Saturdays, 12-1 the last 2 weeks overall. So in all sports, on a great roll right now.
How do you think?
Yeah. Since August the 4th, 74 and 43, good for 63%. So things have been rolling well. Thank you for bringing that up, my friend. But you saber it when it's going on, right?
Listen, you're rolling along, beef.
Yeah.
I think I went 8-4 or something like that along those lines in college football this weekend. Hold on, I'll tell you. Yeah, 8-4. I think on your site, the winner circle, and football again split out. What am I gonna do? I mean, last night I have sevens in both games. I good numbers. I lose. I'm Minnesota killing me at the end. It's been one of those years so far to start a couple weeks. I'm not crushed. I'm even, but you want. I feel like I'm on the opposite side of the last second wins or stuff like that. Like I'm not getting any of those. Nothing has fallen in my favor. I feel like the Vikings, as much as they're 0-3 this year, I feel like I'm the Vikings this year. Right? That quarter break where last year I got them all.
Yeah, and when you're on a good roll like myself, those kind of games fall your way. It's just the way it rolls, and you're treading water right now, but all it takes is 1 or 2 good weeks, and you're off to the races. So, Jesse, how are you, my man?
Well, Ross, it's not often that you go a perfect 8-0 with football over the weekend, perfect 9-0 last 2 weeks with college, perfect 9-0 with college football sides for the season, and you're playing second fiddle to the big man on campus, and Sean's ahead of me on the leaderboards at gamblersWORLD.net with college football. Even though you're just barely above 500, Sean, it looks. I'm figuring that your big plays have cashed for you, and you're up a bunch of units with college football, which is something to hang your hat on a little bit as well. And we're getting some pretty good feedback in the comments on YouTube. I'm pretty happy about that. And those guys that had a lot of negative things to say, they're not coming around as much, or they're just a little quiet these days.
Yeah.
I mean, if I at least listen, you say it ahead of time, like, I just responded to somebody who's talking about the, you guys hating on Dion. It's not that. The team isn't good. They can't tackle, folks. There you go. That's.
I'm reading between the lines on some of these comments. Let's not make it more than we're intending it to be, folks. Look. Sean himself he's self-admittedly a big Dion fan. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan from way back.
I love what he said. Yeah. You better get me now. And that's all anybody in the betting world says. Listen, we're not Sports Illustrated, ESPN. The betting world says this guy, his team there's no depth right now, and he's going to get beat up by good teams.
Yeah.
And if he get the next 2 or 3 years, they'll be really good.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, they got to get them now, and they will. A good team's going to get you now, and they're going to lay it on you a little bit.
Absolutely, and I give him all the accolades in the world for the job he's done thus far. I don't know if not too many people would have predicted he would have got out of the gate 3-0 and captured the college football world and their attention. I mean, the bottom line is Oregon's a pretty damn good team. With a pretty damn good quarterback in Bo Nix. So, and the depth showed its wares in that game. And of course, you're losing you're missing your best player in Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are just not protected. They weren't protecting him. I mean, the poor kid has no time to throw for crying out loud.
So not that we want to dwell on Colorado. If USC's defense is all that great, if it's another crazy show, we're down 28-0 in a blink of an eye. I mean, that game was over at 35-0. They were toying with him. It was like 42, whatever. We'll mail it in. If they really wanted to run it up, that could have been a 70-point game. They were like, statement made. Listen, you guys aren't ready. Talking about you guys going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and talk about Oregon. I mean, Dan Lanning, if you folks aren't familiar with Dan Lanning, he was the former defensive coordinator at Georgia when they won a national championship, and they just had gaudy defensive numbers and put out some excellent players that have gone to the NFL. I mean, this guy, keep an eye on him, Jesse. You know, their defense, Oregon was always known as that high-powered offense under Chip Kelly and whoever followed. And now all of a sudden this team is athletic and playing good defense as well. So that makes them a scary team to play right now.
Well, Ross, let me backtrack a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't Oregon come into one of the recent season, like 4 years ago or something, ranked top 5 overall, a playoff contender, started the season on the road at Georgia.
Lost like 48-3.
Yeah.
And Dan Lanning was the defensive coordinator for Georgia. And fast forward to a few years later, the quarterback that beat them that year, Bo Nix, is playing for Oregon, as well as the defensive coordinator is now the head coach. Is that correct?
No, Bo Nix was actually at Auburn.
That's right.
Yes.
Sorry,
And
I got my storylines mixed up.
That's okay, but the Dan Lanning storyline was correct. Bo Nix was nowhere near the quarterback at Auburn as he is now. The kid is just thriving and good for him.
I remember his only good game, or his signature game, was against Oregon, and he had a game-winning drive. They ended up winning by 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah,
that was another tough loss. Another tough loss for Oregon at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. I mean, Notre Dame and Ohio State, one hell of a game. How guys lived up to all the expectations, and boy, oh boy, Notre Dame, 10 guys on the field on the last 2 plays of the game. What I mean, come on, Sean.
What do you even say to that?
Yeah.
Like, there's somebody in the booth has to look down and be like, I think we're short a guy.
Yeah.
And who's the guy who's not on the field? Like, who's that kid? How don't you know you're on defensive?
Yeah.
At that point, it's
coordinator. It's, one guy is usually assigned to that, correct? One coach is usually assigned to making sure, whether it be offense or defense, that you're counting players on the field. And,
I thought it was going to be a offensive kind of game. I like the over. I did sort of like Ohio State. Didn't have nothing really on it, but Notre Dame. There goes your season. Good night. Yeah. And how are you a 4-point fave over Duke, or 5? Well, I mean, I saw it was like a 5.
I thought it was 5.5.
5.5. Actually,
it was. Yeah. Well, it was when at first I thought I saw 6, but then I saw a 4. I saw 5. I didn't look at it. That's like, wow, I don't want anything to do with that game. They're begging to take North Carolina, Notre Dame, I think, with that number.
Yeah, Duke quietly just moseying along here, and Bradley Leonard, a very underrated quarterback for Duke, and that sets up as a pretty good matchup. And just wonder, how does Notre Dame recover from that kind of loss? It's
that's their season. There's no playoff for them.
I still think Notre Dame's a top 10 team. I mean, by all rights, they had every opportunity to win that game. They lived up to their billing, and credit to Ohio State. Look, they hung in there. They showed a lot of character in a hostile environment. Their quarterback, who received some criticism at the beginning of the year, I mean, he looks like he's the real deal. And again, Sam Hartman, the one call that really bothered me, Jesse, was the 3rd and short late in the game, and you got a 235-pound running back who's a bulldozer, and you run a quarterback with Sam Hartman, and you get stopped.
There was a screen pass as well that
right
up to that, I think.
So some questionable play calling in critical situations, and then Clemson, Florida State. How about that game? Wow. Clemson, they played their heart out,
listen, play your heart out. You play scared. You saw, last week you saw Colorado State lose a game like that. And this guy, Dabo, wants to play. We'll wear him down, kick a field. What are you doing? Why would you want to
Yeah.
give a team a shot to come down? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then you missed
Well,
the field goal.
yeah, that was a heartbreaker right there for Clemson. And we're going to be talking about
Oh,
Clemson.
wait, last one, kind of one we got to
Sure.
talk about. Bama. Is Bama
Yeah.
back rolled that game?
Jesse was
Did
right
you
on
tell
that.
Ross about the classics?
What's that, Jesse?
Well, I don't know if you're a fan of the classics, Ross. Like you're a cultured, educated man. You're aware that the Egyptians built the pyramids. Michelangelo's David. Led Zeppelin did Stairway to Heaven. And Jesse
Yeah.
Schule broke down Alabama Ole Miss.
There you go, man. And did it
A master
perfectly.
class. A master class in college football analysis was that one was.
Yeah, like I said, well, I always allude to Sean as being the genius of the bunch, but I might have to direct that term over to Mr. Schule, at least for the next week or so.
Well, I sure would have looked like the dog if Ole Miss won that game outright. I would have looked pretty silly, wouldn't I have?
No, but you called it right to a T. I mean, Ole Miss had a 7-6 lead at the half. Everybody counted Alabama out, after losing 2 weeks ago, and then with a lackluster performance at South Florida. And there they go. They come home, and Lane Kiffin and his high-powered offense wasn't very high-powered in that game. So, in any event, we are going to be talking some pretty good games today. Jesse will be talking about the Clemson at Syracuse game. Sean, South Carolina at Tennessee. I'll be looking at Florida and Kentucky. So looking forward to that. Before we get to that, folks, just a friendly reminder. Our sponsor is Gamblers World. You can go to gamblersworld.com where you'll see all the videos. And you can go to gamblersworld.net is where 10 of the finest handicappers you'll find anywhere in the country today, including us three right there. And we guarantee all our picks, meaning our single game and multi-game daily packages, as well as subscription plans of 30 days or less, are all guaranteed, meaning if you don't win, you don't make a profit. We will credit your account the exact amount of your purchase price, and you could use that any which way you like on any handicapper at any time, regardless of who you bought from originally. Also, keep in mind, folks, you heard some pretty good college football records. Sean went 8-4 last week. Jesse 9-0 the last 2 weeks. Ross 12-1 the last 2 weeks. College football annual packages for any one of us or any of the great handicappers over at gamblersworld.net, $5.99, which will take you right through the college football national championship game. Same applies to the NFL, $5.99, and you can get the combination of NFL and college football for $8.99. So, folks, check out gamblersworld.net. A lot of great handicappers. You heard some of the roles that us three are on. Jump aboard. Invest in this subscription plan, folks. That's the only way that you're going to win. Jumping from handicapper to handicapper every day is usually a remedy for losing, okay? And it's got nothing to do with the quality of handicapper, but the tendency seems to be is to jump on who's ever hot, and then eventually that guy you might catch him at the end of a tail end of a win streak, and you're chasing your tail, for lack of a better phrase. In any event, let's get right to the games. Jesse, I'm looking forward to your analysis on this one. Clemson at Syracuse. I mentioned Notre Dame having a difficult time Are they going to have a difficult time bouncing back after an emotional loss? Clemson had Florida State on the ropes, and they let it go, and now they're a 2-loss team. And this is a program that's not used to this early in the season being out of national title contention. But that's exactly the scenario. And sitting there waiting for him is a Syracuse team that's 4-0 and not unranked. And I think better than people realize. But it doesn't matter what I think about this game. It matters what you think, Jesse.
Well, Ross, you're looking forward to hearing my analysis. I'm looking forward to giving you my analysis. That Clemson game, it blows my mind that teams continue to roll out inexperienced kickers, unreliable kickers in big games when we've seen so many games decided by a field goal. and you're going to trot out there in your game of the year that your season hangs in the balance, and you brought a guy in from the street last week. Blows my mind. That said, if Clemson had have made that kick and won that game, that would have set up a game of the year situation here where I would have Syracuse plus the points for a game of huge play, max unit play on Syracuse. I still like Syracuse. I still think it's a great spot to grab the 7. I did have Syracuse in this game last year. It was on October the 22nd. Syracuse was plus 14. I went back, checked my records, looked at my analysis, looked at the reason I gave why I was taking Syracuse. And I said, I think the Tigers have become overrated. In recent years, Syracuse has played the Tigers tough. Clemson won by just a field goal at the Carrier Dome last year. And that's what I said last October, so 2 years ago now. And Syracuse was 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 heading into last year's meeting. So now 5-1 against the spread. And watching last year's game, Syracuse opened up a big lead. They ended up losing 27-21, easily covering the spread. But they were up 21-10 heading into the fourth quarter. And the reason they lost is because their quarterback was banged up. Their NFL caliber running back was out of the game. And they couldn't run the ball to run out the clock with that big lead. This year, Syracuse is in a much better spot. Last year, they had to run the gauntlet heading up to the Clemson game. And they had already, I don't think either of those two guys that were key performers, Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader, I don't think either of them were 100% going into the Clemson game last year. Of course, Sean Tucker's in the NFL now. Garrett Schrader is still there, still looking quite good. But I believe he's coming into this game 100% healthy, so he can. And they like to run with him, lay his body on the line. The fact that they've had a soft schedule, I think, puts them in a good spot to win this game outright. I like Syracuse. I think it's a gift getting 7 points. Clemson might sneak away with a win here, but I don't think they're going to do it by more than a touchdown. So give me Syracuse plus the points.
Yeah, Syracuse actually has covered the last 3. And like Jesse alluded to, they lose 27-21 to Clemson 2 years ago at home, 17-14 on the road. So, or I might have those switched around, but very close one-score games. And Garrett Schrader, underrated college quarterback right now. He's a fifth-year senior, And the thing with him is he's such a physical presence. I mean, he runs the ball. He's not that Lamar Jackson type of elusive quarterback, but he's an underrated runner, and he's extremely physical. And the Syracuse defense is much better than people think. So keep an eye on that. I thought last week was a danger spot, Jesse, when they played Army, because Army is not a bad team. We saw them go into UTSA and win the game outright. And Syracuse with that soft schedule, and then finally waiting for Clemson in their 5th game. I thought it might have been a watch out. It's a look ahead spot. And, for a half, it looked that way. But then they took control of the game in the second half and won by 13. Sean, your thoughts? Any thoughts in terms of not necessarily a pick, but any thoughts on either team or both?
Listen, as Clemson season's over, deflated, bubble bursting, however you want to word that for them. They got to like Syracuse. This is the game they have circled. Home game. I mean, they go on the road the next 2. Big games for, but this is like their Super Bowl kind of game, right? They've gotten up for them. You go over the last 4 or 5 years, all close games, except for one was a real blowout. And that one, then Clemson was, top tier playoff championship Clemson. Take the touchdown here. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be on it. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take.
Yeah, I think the Syracuse, and me, if I'm taking an underdog, it better be a realistic chance of them also winning the game, and taking the points as an additional bonus. And I think this is a textbook example of what I allude to in those situations. I would not be shocked whatsoever if Syracuse wins this game outright, with all being considered. Again, Clemson, a 2-loss team this early in the year, out of national title contention early on, and coming off an excruciating overtime loss to Florida State, and Syracuse chomping at the bit right now at 4-0. Anyway, let's get to Sean's game, South Carolina at Tennessee. Right now, Tennessee a 12.5-point favorite and a total 64.5. Spencer Rattler, not a bad quarterback for the South Carolina Gamecocks. This, to me, they're a dangerous underdog in this spot, but it doesn't matter what I think. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, Rattler, Heisman guy a couple years ago, and then he transferred, left Oklahoma, came over here. Big win last year, knocked Tennessee basically out of the playoffs. They had lost to Georgia, but then you drop a 63 piece. I'm gonna have to look at the over here, though. The points, you think maybe they hang tough here, Carolina, but it's going to be Rattler throwing the ball. They do not run the ball. These guys rush for 70 yards a game. Now, listen, I don't care college or not. I mean, you got to be able to run the ball a little more. You can't be one dimensional. That's just me. I mean, especially on the road. I look at the schedule and who they play. There's not really much. All right, you lose to Georgia's tough one. And again, 24. I am not taking away from Spencer Rattler. Georgia defense, how good are they? We know how good Georgia is. North Carolina game was a little ugly, though, 31-17. And I don't want to say Tennessee's comparable, but that's people were high on Tennessee. I'm not a Milton guy. I'm going to go over here, though. I don't think without a run game, it's going to be hard to stay in it. Tennessee could just pin their ears back, rush Rattler. And Tennessee's, again, Milton, not a guy I love, but they're more balanced. They run the ball, they pass the ball. I mean, they rush for again, one team doesn't rush. These guys rush for 200 yards a game. So I'll go with a balanced attack, putting points on the board. I mean, even you want to lean a little Tennessee because it's a revenge game. You lose 63-30, and that's good bulletin board material. Milton actually got in that game because Rattler was throwing a touchdown with 2 minutes left to put 63 on the board. So Tennessee get a chance to put some points up here, a little payback. I'll go over the total.
Yeah, there's a reason why the total's so high, and it's 64.5 as opposed to years past is a high total right now in college football with the new rule changes. Jesse, any thoughts?
Yeah, I like the over as well. First knee-jerk reaction, I'm looking at the revenge angle here with Tennessee. Losing 63-30 last year stung. Not only that, South Carolina knocked out Hendon Hooker, pretty much ended Tennessee's season. So there's a huge revenge angle. But you look at Spencer Rattler last week, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, 18 of 20 passing. Granted, it was against Mississippi State, and they're not very good. But, last year against Tennessee, 438 yards and 6 touchdowns for Rattler. I'm not a Spencer Rattler guy. There's guys that you like and guys that you don't. Rattler's always been a guy that I don't like. Curly blonde hair, perm, little bit too cocky for me. I've always pegged him as inconsistent. He'll have a big game and then a bad game, a big game and then a bad game. There a lot more big games this year than bad games, and maybe Spencer Rattler's maturing a little bit, and it looks like a good spot for him to have another big game and put up a lot of points. And 64.5, I'll go over the number.
There you go. So both gentlemen like the over 64.5. Official pick from Sean, over 64.5. Jesse has just give you a handicapping tip that in the future, he likes ugly quarterbacks with messy hair and not pretty guys with perms and curly hair. So there you go, folks. You learned something that we want to make you smarter sports better today than you were yesterday. Jesse just gave you one more tip. Anyway,
the mail he would have got, the hate mail if we were on TV, because there was no forums or videos back in the 80s talking about guys with perms. Boy, man, he would have got crushed. They would have been hating on his. Man. Although he might have had a perm back then. You never know. He had a little kind of.
He would not have been a
Jesse
Joe
Mullet
Namath fan.
having looking for himself. A little perm.
He would not have been a Joe Namath fan back in the day. So anyway, I'm going to look at Florida and Kentucky. Kentucky right now a 2.5-point home favorite. The total in this game is 46. Florida 3-1. Their only loss came in their opener against Utah in a game they actually outgained the Utes by 76 yards in that game. And Kentucky off to that 4-0 start right now, and I think it might be a little bit deceiving because you look at who Kentucky has played so far. They win against Vandy, Akron, Eastern Kentucky, who plays at the FCS level, and Ball State. While Florida, I just mentioned, gave number 10 Utah a tough game on the road. Even though they lost the game 24-11, they didn't cover. They did outgain them in that game, and they pretty much shot themselves in the foot in that contest. And then they beat number 21 Tennessee, who we just talked about, 29-16 at home. So despite the despite Kentucky having a better record, Florida has definitely faced a tougher competition. However, I'm going to focus in on the total here, guys. Kentucky defensively in their first 4 games, giving up 15.5 points per game, under 300 yards per contest. Florida, really good defense in their first 4 against tougher competition, 13.5 points per game and 245 yards per contest allowed. Since the start of last year, Kentucky has played some low-scoring games when they face teams with winning records like the Florida Gators have, and 7-0 to the under in those situations. And Florida, in their last 3 games, 65.2% of their offensive plays have been runs. And Sean was talking about pass-heavy teams. Well, Florida has established a solid running game of late. They've controlled the clock during those 3 games in which they've run the ball over 65% of the time. 35 minutes and 4 seconds average time of possession per game over their last 3. And sometimes the best defense is a ball control offense. And Florida has a combination of pretty good defense. And if they continue that trend of running the ball very well, and Graham Mertz, I know I gave him a lot of flack at the start of the year. And still, to me, he's nothing more than an average college football quarterback at the in terms of a Power 5 conference school. But he's you look at his numbers, they're not gaudy, but they're efficient. I mean, he's completing a high percentage of his passes, but his yards per play or his yards per pass attempt are not what leads you to believe that the Gators will be an explosive offense in this game. So I'm going to go Florida and Kentucky under the total of 46, guys. Jesse?
Well, Ross, this is one where you'd want to get the early line, the look-ahead line from a week earlier. I think it was sitting at 48.5. And my first look was, geez, could I look at taking an under here? And I feel like I missed the best number. But I would take, at this point, if you give me a choice between I'd look at the under and Florida plus the points. And because of the line movement and the total being a little bit on the low side, I also like Florida plus the points. As you mentioned, Kentucky just hasn't played anybody. We can't really say we know how good they are, but Florida has proven themselves to me that they're a tough, gritty team, and it's being such a big rivalry. You got to love the dog in a rivalry game like this, especially when they're more battle tested. So give me Florida plus 2.5.
There you go. And, Sean, Jesse makes a good point because you got a 4-0 Kentucky team against a 3-1 Florida team. Yet the undefeated team is less than a field goal favorite at home. Devin Leary, the former quarterback over at NC State, is now at Kentucky, and he's put up some pretty decent numbers, but he has thrown 5 interceptions as well. So in any event, Sean, your take on this game?
Well, definitely, I still like the under here at 46. I see a random 46.5, but I also see 45.5. That's, listen, I like the 48 would have been great. But even in December, I think you're all right. But I'm going to maybe lean Kentucky here. I mean, Florida's going to rely on a run, yes. Yeah, I'm going to go, for me to, Jess, it's like I see, again, stupid, when I see the ranked team, especially college football, college hoops, and I see the unranked, even at home, doesn't make a difference, favored over the quote-unquote ranked team. It's kind of one of those that I just always have to just circle and be like, well, am I going to be right about this? It's one of those kind of things, even though it's not even laying 3 for home field. It's just one of those where I'm like, I got to kind of look at that way before I take the road dog there. And also, Ross brought up Mertz numbers, and this goes into like my Spencer Rattler. He was never a guy who would just throw the ball. Right, so Rattler, he's going to throw. They can't run. These guys, how do I know he could throw the ball if they need to? Because they're a run first. He's a guy. Even in Wisconsin, they were a run first kind of team. He never has to throw, so they get down a little bit. He's got to throw. I don't trust that. I don't trust him.
Especially if you look at their success over the last 3 games, and they've run the ball 65% of the time. It opens up play action passing for him and makes the game a lot easier for him. You know, what happens if they do fall behind in a game? You're absolutely correct, Sean. An excellent point. All right, so our 3 picks. Jesse likes the Syracuse Orangemen plus the 7 at home against Clemson. Sean likes South Carolina and Tennessee to go over the total of 64.5. Yours truly likes the Florida Gators and Kentucky Wildcats to go under the total of 46. All 3 games go on Saturday. There you have it, folks. Sean, tell the folks a little bit about what you may have coming up this week. I know you got some plays up already for the weekend action, and also how you've been doing of late.
All right. So, as I said, college NFL, we're not bad. We're not good. We're just there. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is sometimes. But good thing about a site like Winner Circle, it's multi-capper. You see who's rolling along. So, you know, I'll take my lumps when I have to. I'm like Dion. Get me when you can. All right. So I'm down a little bit. But NFL college football, I'm looking forward to baseball playoffs. I can't pick a baseball side right now. I mean, did the Padres win yesterday?
They lost 2-1.
Yeah, I was like, I said, you know, Stone's pitching. I didn't bet him. I'm like, that's just the way I'm going. I liked Seattle yesterday. I know they lost. I was like the Padres. I said, fade the Yankees. I don't know if they lost. I'm not. Last week of the season, no, thank you. NFL college football. Thursday night, I just got to do a write up, and a package will be up for Thursday night NFL.
There you have it. Sean Higgs over at gamblersworld.net. If you folks aren't aware, Sean, again, coming off an 8-4 week in college football. Also, Sean was the #1 handicapper in the world last year in terms of the sports.
Does us no good this year, though, Russ. Not when I got you two cats going 8-0 every weekend.
64%. Let me tell you something. A guy who puts up 207 picks like Sean did last year and hit 64% of his picks, I would say that I would keep an eye on him going forward, folks, because if he's just treading water right now, there's going to come a couple weeks in a row where he makes an absolute killing. So it's about the long history and track record rather than not always about the right now kind of thing. Jesse, tell the folks what you got going on and what you want to share with the audience.
Well, we already mentioned that I did sweep the board with both college and the pros last weekend. My numbers with college football hitting right about 79% with college football for the season. So my numbers are down from last year when I was hitting 90%. But we're working on that. We still got a few more games in September. We might get there, but probably not. We're going to have to take a step back and let's maybe go for 85% this September. Anyways, I've got 3 games posted with college football. I've got 3 games posted with NFL. I consider myself kind of fortunate to have swept with NFL last week. I had a couple sort of square favorites that won. I got lucky there, and I did have the Colts though, and I was a little bit more proud of myself for picking an outright doggy winner in that one. And I feel really strong about next week's football card, and I welcome all of you to join me at gamblersworld.net.
There you go. Jesse Schule, one of the finest handicappers in the country, just like Sean Higgs. And Jesse, never feel bad about having a winner. I don't care if it's a rectangle, square, or triangle. It's a, winner is a winner is a winner. All right. Excuse me for repeating myself, but 12-1 in college football the last 2 weeks for me, including 11-0 the last 2 Saturdays. NFL not so good out of the start, which is uncharacteristic of me in September. But only 8-9 in the NFL, coming off a tough week. The week before I was 5-0, but this week 1-4. I'm transparent. I tell them the way it is. Major League Baseball on an absolute roll. Sean mentioned the San Diego-San Francisco game last night. I had the under 7 in that matchup. That now makes me 10-2 with my last 12 in Major League Baseball. As a matter of fact, folks, since August the 4th, I am 43-22 in Major League Baseball. My return on investment is very good because I don't give out big chalks. All right. All sports since August the 4th on a 74-43 run. Good for 63%. Again, folks, you could find me at gamblersworld.net if you want to invest in me long term. try out a month package for just $3.99. Save yourself a ton of money, and be guaranteed that if I don't make a profit, which I don't know, the way I've been going lately, I would say that's highly improbable, but you never know. We hit bad streaks, and if that happens, you get a $399 credit. You can use it any which way you like over at gamblersworld.com. Boys, always a great time when you guys join me.
Jesse.
I'm not done yet, Sean. I wanted to say, I got to constantly Sean hosts his own show, Midday Money. So at times,
you're totally. That's not how you usually do it, though.
Some guy just mentioned, Jesse, you see the guy going, yeah, I think Sean wants your seat. Well, that's not.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's not true. Sean is.
I'm not a facilitator. I don't want to say.
He's always offered a betterment of the show, and he is a host. Okay, so sometimes his feedback and him interrupting me to tell me this is what I need to do are crucial. And so
that just you normally on your time, you don't usually come in. That speech is usually after the fact, after he hits the like button. That's why I thought you missed it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Right, Jesse? Yes or no? Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Sean. I agree with you. How's that? All right.
You should agree. I was right.
Anyway, Jesse, there's a like button underneath.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, folks. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the work, time, and effort we put into making you a smarter sports better today than yesterday. Jesse and Sean will be back with me tomorrow morning, and we'll be talking more college football at that particular moment in time. I will be back this afternoon with Mr. Paul Bovey and Mr. Chip Chirimbus. If you watched us last week, thank you, because that was the most watched show of the week last week. So good for them, and good for all of us, because we really appreciate all the subscribers that we've amassed over the last month. And without you folks, this show would not survive and not be successful. And it reminds me, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, that is the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, take a second to do so. If you're watching on your PC, you'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner. Just hit that. If you're watching on your mobile device, just hit the subscribe button below the video box. It's absolutely free to subscribe. There's no hidden agenda. There's no subscription plans, and you're just privy to some of the best handicapping information you'll find on the internet today. And I'm a little biased, but the best sports betting podcast on the internet today, with no disrespect intended toward anyone else. In any event, until the next time, for Sean Higgs, Jesse Schule, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.